Mr. Chairman of the
Κύριε
Theophano
Πρόεδρε,
Foundation, Mr. Chairman of Special Olympics International, dear Tim, Madam CEO of Special Olympics, dear Mary Davis, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, this year's Theophano Prize is special in many ways. First of all, it is Special Olympics, while we are so close to Mount Olympus. I'm sure Zeus agrees with our choice for this year's prize. And by the way, we are also close to the monastery of Mount Athos. Humanity, solidarity, and charity are virtues that are also highly regarded in that tradition. So we are right on all fronts. In choosing these laureates, the Theophano Foundation also wanted to show how attached it is to humanity in these times of dehumanization. The attention each athlete receives at Special Olympics is in stark contrast to the total lack of importance attached to each person in 2 war zones. And by the way, those wars are going on not so far away from Thessaloniki, both barely around 1,300 kilometers. It is the return of tragedy in history. The values of Special Olympics are the opposite of the unvalues of war. Empress Theophano gave great attention to education and culture during her reign 1,000 years ago, also as a means of transcending differences between people and cultures. The city of Thessaloniki itself has not been spared from tragedy and atrocities during its long history. So this city is all the more sensitive to humanity today. The enthusiasm and the fraternity of Special Olympics athletes are the antidote to today's evils. And that's why this jury and our foundation itself is so proud today. 20 years ago, I first attended an opening of Special Olympics Games in my own country in Belgium. I left the stadium with a warm feeling, thinking about the enthusiasm of the participants, their families, and those who accompanied them. This was all unexpected for me. After that, I went back to the Games a few times, and each time I experienced it as a breath of fresh air. Special Olympics is much more than a sporting event. The classical games are mainly about medals. At Special Olympics, it is really also about values. Of course, there is dedication, training, and competition. Rather, there is that overwhelming feeling of togetherness and respect. Every human being counts, whoever they are, whatever their limitations are or their gifts. That is the foundation of our civilization, or it should be. It must be fought for every day. It must not perish from the earth, as President Lincoln once said at Gettysburg. Special Olympics is the embodiment of that core value, of that personalist ideal. Nothing is more important than the human person. He or she is more than just an individual. A human being becomes a person by being connected to others. The I, then a we. The best thing an individual can do is to become less of an individual. Sport at Special Olympics is a means, not an end in itself. The basis is ethical, not purely commercial. And that too is an antidote to the commercialization of almost everything. Special Olympics' global success proves that there is still plenty of support for this among ordinary men and women. We can only be grateful to the initiators at the time and those responsible today. Chairman Tim Shriver and CEO Mary Davis and their team are the inspirers and the facilitators today. Special Olympics is both an organization and a movement. And Special Olympics is a global movement. It draws on a message that is also ours in Europe. Special Olympics is above all the sum of countless individual stories. Each athlete and his or her family have been through a difficult journey. The ode to joy, remembering the European anthem, the ode to joy that they bring does not come spontaneously. It has been preceded by grief, trial and error, disillusionment and recovering. We only see the result. And we must also think of those who have not achieved that result, who are equally our brothers and sisters in humanity. The Theophano Prize differs from other European prizes because it is awarded far from the original heartland of the Union, with my city of Brussels as its symbol. Although Empress Theophano reigned, we look for our laureates not so much among policymakers, rather among those who represent values. The first laureate was the Erasmus program, which made 10 million young people more European and more human by studying and living abroad with other peers. And the second laureate was the Turkish-German couple Uğur, Şahin and Özlem Türeci, who developed the very successful vaccine in full COVID times that saved millions of lives. Third was the great conductor Daniel Barenboim for bringing Palestinians and Israelis to play together in his West-Eastern Divan Orchestra. And the fourth laureate was UN Secretary General Gutteres for the humanitarian task at the beginning of the war in Ukraine, so that the world's poorest could still be supplied with grain via the Black Sea. And today, Special Olympics is our guest, who allows people with intellectual disabilities to develop as full human beings. Empress Theophano was more than an empress. She devoted herself to education for many, including our own son, the later emperor, so that he not only received a military training. To the extent possible, Theophano also brought soft values to a society at the time dominated by the so-called male virtues, rather than vices. Even today, there are large countries where machismo prevails to the point of violence and horror. This award wants to be special. Special Olympics is therefore not an accidental choice. The Theophano Foundation is going to continue its work. For a Western European like me, raised in Greco-Latin culture for 6 years, the combination of East and West is almost natural. Together we want to build even more bridges in today's world. We want the globalization of humanity and fraternity, equality and respect. These are values found in most religions and cultures. Those values should not only apply to the people of your own country, your own tribe, your own race, your own culture. They must be universal, or they are not. The globalization of trade and investment, of mobility and the internet, of sport and media, of science and knowledge has already been talked about enough. We need to give globalization a deeper and a higher dimension. Our age is no longer satisfied with an abstract discourse on grand principles. Only the embodiment of values in people themselves is credible and is authentic. The best answer to cynicism is people working for each other in concrete ways, in everyday life. We must continue to dream against the spirit of the times. The world belongs to the dreamers. Special Olympics also started with a dream, as thinkers and writers dreamt of the unified Europe centuries ago. Their dream also came true. All men must become brothers, the great German poet Schiller wrote 250 years ago. And Beethoven and the EU immortalized these verses. In that famous verse, Schiller, the poet, speaks of the Elysian, a kind of paradise. Ladies and gentlemen, where we can, we should make little paradises of our own. Special Olympics did and is doing just that. Again, congratulations for Special Olympics.